Tonight, let's talk about a man who decided the whole world had gone completely insane. His name is Yossarian, and his only crime was wanting to live. No pressure tonight, by the way. This is just a darkly funny story about war, madness, and bureaucracy. Perfect for drifting off to whenever you're ready. Imagine a rule so perfectly designed that the harder you try to escape it, the tighter it holds you. That rule has a name. It's called Catch-22. Captain John Yossarian is lying in a hospital bed on a tiny island called Pianosa off the coast of Italy. It's 1944, and he'd rather be sick than fly. Here's his problem. The Air Force requires him to fly a set number of bombing missions before he can go home. But every time he gets close, they raise the number. There's a rule called Catch-22. If you're crazy, you can be excused from flying. But if you ask to be excused, that proves you're sane enough to fly. Yossarian stares at Doc Danica. The logic is airtight. The trap is perfect. You can't prove you're crazy because trying to prove it proves you're not. The setting is a tiny island off the Italian coast. Pianosa is barely a dot on the map. Flat, dusty, scorched by sun, and packed with American bomber crews. Every few days, Yossarian climbs into the nose of a B-25 bomber. He's the bombardier, the man who aims the bombs while flak explodes all around him. In the hospital, Yossarian passes time censoring letters home from enlisted men. He blacks out words at random, sometimes entire sentences, just for something to do. Sometimes he blacks out everything except the articles. Sometimes he signs the letters as Washington Irving. The censorship office goes crazy trying to find a spy named Irving. Doc Danica is the flight surgeon. He's supposed to help men who are losing their minds. But he's too busy feeling sorry for himself to help anyone else. Doc Danica had a nice medical practice back home. Good money, nice patients. Then the war dragged him here, and he can't stop complaining about what he lost. Colonel Cathcart is the man in charge of the bombing group. He's ambitious, insecure, and absolutely terrified of looking bad in front of his superiors. Cathcart has one dream, becoming a general, and he's figured out the fastest way: volunteer his men for the most dangerous missions, then take the credit himself. Listen to how this works. The required missions were 25, then Cathcart raised them to 30, then 30, then 40. Every time men got close, the number climbed. Some pilots accept the new numbers quietly. Some pound tables and shout. Yossarian watches the pattern repeat and understands. They're never going to let anyone go home. There's a pilot named Hungry Joe. He screams in his sleep every single night. Horrible, blood-curdling screams that wake the entire camp, but only when he's not flying. Here's the paradox of Hungry Joe. When he has missions to fly, he sleeps peacefully. When the missions stop, the nightmares come back. Combat is the only thing that calms him. Yossarian's tentmate is a small, cheerful man named Orr. Orr is always crashing his plane into the ocean. And he's always surviving, always paddling happily back to shore. Orr has this strange habit of stuffing crab apples into his cheeks. When Yossarian asks him why, Orr just giggles and changes the subject. He never explains anything directly. Nately is the youngest pilot in the group. Barely 20, from a rich family, with a face so innocent it looks like it's never seen a hard day in its life. Nately is desperately in love with a prostitute he met in Rome. She couldn't care less about him. She falls asleep every time he tries to talk to her. He adores her anyway. Chaplain Tapman might be the meekest man on the entire island. He's small, gentle, terrified of authority, and trying desperately to be useful in a place that has no use for kindness. The chaplain meets Yossarian in the hospital, and something clicks. They become friends. Two decent men trying to stay human inside a system designed to grind them down. Picture a bombing mission. Engines roar to life before dawn. The B-25 taxis down a dusty runway, lifts off, and joins a formation of 12 planes heading north over open water. Over the target, the sky turns black with flak. Anti-aircraft shells burst all around them. Yossarian hunches over his bomb site, trying to hold steady while the world explodes. The bomb run is the worst part. For 30 seconds you have to fly perfectly straight and level, while everything around you is trying to kill you. No evasion, no turning. After landing, they count the planes. 11, 12. A long pause. Someone didn't come back. They wait at the edge of the runway, watching the empty sky. Nothing comes. Yossarian goes back to Dr. Nika. How many missions now? 40. How many has he flown? 38. 2 more and he can go home. But he knows what's coming next. There's an officer on the island named Major. That's his actual name. His father thought it would be hilarious. It destroyed the boy's entire life. A computer error promoted him to squadron commander. He never asked for it, never wanted it, and has absolutely no idea what a squadron commander is supposed to do. Major's solution to command is brilliant in its cowardice. He orders his sergeant to only let people into his office when he's not there. When he's inside, no one gets in. When Major is out, visitors are told he's in. When he's in, they're told he's out. The result is perfect. Nobody can ever actually see the squadron commander. Ever. Now meet Milo Minderbinder. He's the mess officer, the man in charge of feeding the squadron. But Milo has much bigger plans than scrambled eggs and toast. Milo starts small. He trades the squadron's eggs for fresh mozzarella, then trades mozzarella for Scotch whiskey, then whiskey for Sicilian olives. Each trade makes a small profit. Within weeks, Milo's trading empire spans the entire Mediterranean. He calls it M&M Enterprises, and he tells everyone the same thing. Everyone has a share. But only Milo sees the money. Something extraordinary happens. Milo starts trading with both sides. He buys from the Germans, sells to the Americans, buys from the Americans, sells to the Germans. War is just business. And then Milo does the unthinkable. He accepts a contract from the Germans to bomb his own squadron. American planes bomb an American base. For profit, because the contract was binding. When people scream at Milo for bombing his own men, he has a simple answer. The contract was profitable, and everyone has a share. He genuinely doesn't understand the moral problem. In Rome, there's an old Italian man who runs a brothel. Nately argues with him every time they meet. The old man says Italy survives by always surrendering. America will fall by always fighting. The old man's philosophy is simple. Strong countries exhaust themselves winning wars. Weak countries survive by losing them. Italy has been conquered 100 times and is still here. Nately can't accept this. He believes in honor and duty in his country. The old man's cynicism disgusts him, but Nately is 20 years old. The old man has survived 2 world wars. Clivinger is Yossarian's friend who insists that the world makes perfect sense. He's educated, logical, and absolutely certain that Yossarian is being paranoid about people trying to kill him. Clivinger gets called before the Action Board, a military tribunal. He's accused of a crime, but nobody can tell him what the crime actually is. The trial proceeds anyway. The officers decide he's guilty before hearing a single word. Evidence is irrelevant. His defense makes them angrier. The more reasonable Clivinger sounds, the more guilty they find him. One day, Clivinger's plane flies into a cloud during a mission. It never comes out the other side. He simply vanishes, absorbed into the sky like he never existed at all. Dunbar is another friend of Yossarian's. He's figured out that misery makes time feel longer. So Dunbar actively seeks out boring, miserable experiences to extend his life as long as possible. Think about Dunbar's logic for a moment. If being bored makes a minute feel like an hour, then a lifetime of boredom is practically immortality. It's insane, but it's also kind of brilliant. McQuad is the pilot who flies Yossarian's plane. He's cheerful, competent, and absolutely fearless. Except his idea of fun is buzzing the beach so low that swimmers can feel the propellers. Everyone laughs at McWatt's low passes. Kid Sampson stands on a raft in the water, waving at the approaching plane, grinning. McWatt roars toward him, lower than ever. Remember this moment. Chief White Halfote is a Native American officer who announces to everyone that he will die of pneumonia. Not might die, will die. He says it with absolute certainty and complete calm. In the hospital, there's a patient called the Soldier in White. He's completely encased in bandages from head to toe. No one can see his face. No one knows if there's even a person inside. Nurse Duckett works the hospital ward. She's competent, pretty, and fed up with pilots who think wartime excuses bad behavior. Yossarian grabs her one day. She screams, then slaps him hard. Despite that terrible beginning, something genuine develops between them. On quiet afternoons by the beach, Nurse Duckett and Yossarian find brief moments of real tenderness. The war steps back for an hour. General Dreidel outranks everyone on the island. He's a bull of a man who travels everywhere with his personal nurse and demands, and every officer admire her openly. He requires absolute silence otherwise. General Peckham is Dreidel's rival. He doesn't fight with bombs or bullets. He fights with memos. Beautifully written. Devastatingly bureaucratic memos designed to steal Dreidel's authority through paperwork. Dreidel and Peckham despise each other. They spend more energy fighting their bureaucratic war than fighting the actual war. Men die while generals argue about who controls which office. Far from the combat zone, there's an officer named Shishkov. His only passion in life, his absolute obsession, is winning military parade competitions. Nothing else matters to him. Shishkov's ultimate dream is to nail his soldiers' hands to their thighs so their arms can't swing out of formation. He seriously considers it. Only the impracticality stops him, not the cruelty. Ex-PFC Wintergreen runs the mail room at headquarters. That might sound unimportant, but he controls which orders get delivered and which disappear. He essentially runs the entire war from a sorting desk. Wintergreen once rejected a general's order because the prose was too weak. He preferred Peckham's memos because the writing was better. Style literally outranked strategy in this war. In Yossarian's tent, there are belongings that belong to a dead man. A man who was killed on his very first mission, before he ever officially checked into the squadron. Because the dead man never officially arrived, his belongings can never officially be removed. They just sit there day after day, a ghost made of paperwork. Nobody has the authority to touch them. What frightens Yossarian most isn't dying in combat. It's dying for nothing. Being killed because some colonel wanted a promotion or some clerk filed the wrong form. Meaningless death. A mission to Bologna is announced. Everyone knows Bologna is a death trap. The flak is the thickest anywhere in Italy. Men go pale just hearing the city's name in the briefing room. Yossarian sneaks into the briefing room at night. He moves the bomb line on the map, pushes it forward so it looks like Bologna has already been captured. No need to bomb what's already taken. Morning comes and everyone celebrates. Bologna is captured! The mission is cancelled! Men laugh and slap backs. Then someone checks the actual intelligence reports, and the trick is discovered. Over Bologna, Yossarian's terror peaks. He screams at his pilot to turn the plane around, to go around again, to do anything except fly straight through that wall of flak. The pilot obeys. They call him a coward, but Yossarian sees it differently. Flying straight into certain death isn't bravery, it's insanity. The only rational response to being shot at is to not be there. Here's the question that haunts the entire novel. Is Yossarian crazy for wanting to live? Or is everyone else crazy for accepting that their lives mean nothing to the men who send them up? Cathcart raises the missions again. 45 now. Men who were 2 flights from freedom find themselves 10 flights away. The goalposts move, and keep moving, and never stop moving. Yossarian goes to Major for help. He finds him hiding in a ditch behind the squadron office. Major looks up with those sad Henry Fonda eyes and says he can't help anyone. Not even himself. Major whispers something devastating. He says he'd help if he could, but helping anyone would mean asserting authority he doesn't have. The system gave him a rank and took away every power that comes with it. Every door Yossarian tries is locked. Every person he asks is powerless. The system isn't broken. That's the terrible realization. It's working perfectly. It was built to trap people exactly like him. Something shifts in Yossarian. He stops pretending to play along. One morning he shows up to formation completely naked. Just stands there in line, bare as the day he was born. General Dreidel arrives for a medal ceremony. He's here to pin a decoration on Yossarian for a bombing mission. He finds his honoree standing naked in formation, completely unashamed. Dreidel squints at the naked man. He considers the situation. Then he walks over and pins the medal directly onto Yossarian's bare chest. The general respects the audacity, if nothing else. The nakedness isn't madness. It's a statement. If the uniform represents the system that sends men to die for nothing, then Yossarian is refusing to wear the system. He is peeling it off entirely. Now here's something unusual about this story. Time doesn't move in a straight line. Memories overlap with the present. Past missions blur into current ones. Heller tells this story the way trauma works. Throughout the story, a name keeps surfacing. Snowden. Something happened to a young gunner named Snowden over the city of Avignon. Yossarian was there. He can't talk about it yet. Every time the story circles back to Snowden, Yossarian's mind flinches away. We get fragments, a cold plane, a wound, a whisper, but the full picture won't come into focus. Not yet. Meanwhile, Milo's empire grows beyond anything anyone imagined. He now controls trade routes across the entire Mediterranean. He has deals with Egypt, Turkey, Malta, Sicily, and mainland Italy. Milo becomes the mayor of several Italian towns simultaneously. He's also the vice, Shah of Oran, the Caliph of Baghdad, and the assistant governor, general of Malta. Power without borders or loyalty. Milo's philosophy is seductive in its simplicity. What's good for M&M Enterprises is good for the country. What's good for profit is good for everyone. He says it with such sincerity you almost believe him. But here's the catch with Milo. The food in the mess hall gets worse every week, because he trades all the good ingredients away. The men eat dried pasta while Milo exports their butter to Lisbon. Hungry Joe's nightmares grow worse as the mission count rises. He screams so loud at night that men in neighboring tents stuff rags in their ears. When they ground him, he sleeps like a baby. There's a cat that belongs to a young pilot named Hoople. The cat loves sleeping on Hungry Joe's face. Every night it sneaks over and settles on his mouth and nose. This does not help the screaming. A mission to Avignon. The name makes Yossarian's stomach drop. This is where it happened, where Snowden was hit. The narrative approaches the memory again, circles it, then veers away. Or crashes into the ocean again. This is his sixth time. The rescue boat finds him paddling his little raft in circles, grinning from ear to ear. No one can understand why he keeps surviving. Yossarian begs Or to stop volunteering for missions, to stop crashing. Or just looks at him with those bright green eyes and smiles. He asks Yossarian to fly with him. Yossarian refuses. Chaplain Tapman tries to help through proper channels. He writes letters to headquarters requesting Yossarian's case be reviewed. The letters vanish into the bureaucratic void. No one responds. Then the chaplain himself gets into trouble. He's accused of forging Washington Irving's signature on censored letters. Remember those? Yossarian's joke has ricocheted into an innocent man's life. The officers interrogating the chaplain use circular logic. They tell him his guilt proves he's lying, and his denials prove he's hiding something. Every answer makes things worse. Sound familiar? Something breaks in the chaplain that day. He realizes the system isn't broken at all. It's working exactly as intended. The rules exist to protect the people who make the rules. That's all they've ever done. Cathcart raises the missions to 50. 50-some men have flown 48. They were days away. Now they're weeks away. The hope drains out of the squadron like water from a cracked bucket. Watch what happens to men when hope is taken away repeatedly. They stop counting missions. They stop writing letters home promising they'll be back soon. They just fly, land, and fly again. Yossarian starts walking backward everywhere he goes. He walks backward across the airfield, backward through camp, backward to meals. He's watching his own back because nobody else will. People call him crazy for walking backward. But think about it. People are actually trying to kill him. The enemy below, the colonels above. Who's really the crazy one here? One night in Rome changes everything. Yossarian wanders the dark streets alone, and what he sees strips away every last shred of humor from the story. The war shows its true face. He sees a soldier kicking a dog in a doorway, a woman crying in rubble, a child standing alone at a shattered intersection, holding a broken toy, not making a sound. The war has eaten everything. Yossarian finds an old woman sitting in a destroyed apartment. He asks her what happened to the girls who used to live there. The military police came and threw them into the street. On what authority? Catch-22. The old woman explains Catch-22 differently than Danica did. Her version is simpler and more terrifying. Catch-22 means they can do anything to you that you can't stop them from doing. This is the deeper meaning of Catch-22. It's not just a military rule about flying missions. It's the fundamental logic of power itself. Those who have it can do whatever they want. Those who don't can't stop them. Back in Rome on a different night, Nately finally convinces his prostitute to spend real time with him. She falls asleep in his arms, exhausted. When she wakes, something has shifted between them. Nately talks about taking her to America after the war. A house, a garden, a life together. He means every word. His blue eyes shine with a future he can actually see. He's 20 years old and believes everything is possible. Yossarian warns Nately not to get too attached. Not to make promises a war can't keep. But Nately waves him off. The young don't listen when you tell them the world is dangerous. They never have. Back on Pianosa, Maquat keeps buzzing the beach. It's become a daily spectacle. His bomber roaring past at impossible height, swimmers ducking and laughing, the thrill of almost danger. Almost. Kid Samson stands on the wooden raft in the water, feet apart, arms raised like a circus performer. Maquat's plane comes screaming in. This time it's too low. The propeller catches Kid Samson at the waist. The beach goes silent. Everyone stands perfectly still, staring at the water where Kid Samson was. Pieces of him fall from the sky. There is nothing anyone can do. There was nothing anyone could do. Maquat realizes what he's done. He circles the island once in his bomber, engines screaming. Then he points the nose down and flies straight into the side of a mountain. He doesn't try to bail out. 2 men dead in seconds. One from play, one from guilt. The war didn't kill them with bombs or bullets. It killed them with the boredom and madness that fills the spaces between missions. Now here's where the absurdity turns cruel. Danica's name was on Maquat's flight plan. He was listed as a passenger. He wasn't actually on the plane, but the paperwork says he was. Danica is alive. He's standing right there. He can be seen, touched, spoken to. But the records say he died in Maquat's crash. And in the military, the records are more real than the man. His wife back in America receives an official death notification. She collects his life insurance. She moves to a new city. Danica writes her frantic letters, but a dead man can't mail letters. She's gone. Think about what this means. The system has erased a living person. Danica breathes, walks, speaks, and none of it matters because a piece of paper says otherwise. The form is more powerful than the flesh. Cathcart raises the missions to 55. The number is beyond absurd now. Men who should have gone home months ago are still flying every other day. The machine keeps feeding. Dunbar starts to crack. He stands up in the middle of a briefing and shouts that Cathcart is trying to murder them. The room goes dead silent. Officers exchange nervous glances. Dunbar keeps shouting. Dunbar vanishes. Not in a cloud like Clivinger, in a corridor. Men in white come for him one day. They walk him out of the hospital ward, and no one ever sees him again. No explanation, no record. Nobody asks where Dunbar went. That's the most frightening part. A man disappears, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than the disappearance itself. The system absorbs people and moves on. Yossarian understands now. Anyone can vanish. Clivinger went into a cloud. Dunbar went into a hallway. The institution can simply delete you. Your body goes on existing, but you stop mattering. The memory of Snowden surfaces again. Closer this time. Yossarian remembers climbing through the B-25 fuselage over Avignon. He remembers the cold. He remembers hearing someone whimper ahead of him. He reached Snowden in the tail. The young gunner had been hit by flak. There was a wound in his leg, visible through torn flight suit. Yossarian opened the first aid kit and began bandaging it. But that's as far as the memory will go tonight. Yossarian's mind slams the door shut. There's more to the story of Snowden, much more, but the rest is too terrible to face. Not yet. Something in that plane over Avignon changed Yossarian permanently. Whatever he saw when he opened Snowden's flak jacket, that's the center of the entire story. And we're getting closer to it. Nately keeps volunteering for extra missions, not for heroism, to stay close to his prostitute in Rome. Every time Yossarian begs him to stop, Nately shakes his head. Love outweighs fear. Yossarian grabs Nately by the collar one evening. Don't fly tomorrow. Just this once, don't go up. Nately smiles that innocent smile and gently removes Yossarian's hand. He goes up the next morning. Nately is killed on a routine mission over Spezia. The youngest pilot, the one with the richest future. The boy who was going to marry the girl and build the house. Gone, just like that. Someone has to tell Nately's prostitute. The job falls to Yossarian. He walks into the Roman apartment and says the words. She stares at him. Then she attacks him with a bread knife. She blames Yossarian. Not the war, not Cathcart, not the flak gunners. Yossarian, as if by bringing the news he caused the death. Grief needs a target, and he's standing right there. From this point on, Nately's whore appears everywhere Yossarian goes. In alleys with a knife. Behind doors with a knife. On the base with a knife. She becomes grief made physical, following him like a shadow. She is rage and sorrow given a body and a blade. She represents every death Yossarian has witnessed, every friend he's lost. You can't outrun grief. It knows where you sleep. It always finds you. Cathcart raises the missions to 60. 60 missions. The original requirement was 25. In less than a year. The colonel has more than doubled what it takes to go home. The goalposts aren't just moving. They're accelerating. Yossarian walks into Colonel Cathcart's office and refuses to fly. Stands at attention, looks the colonel in the eye, and says no. The word drops into the room like a bomb. Cathcart and his clever aide Colonel Korn huddle together. They need this problem to disappear. Court-martial is messy, draws attention. So they come up with something far more insidious. A deal. The deal is elegant and poisonous. Go home to America. Receive an honorable discharge. Be celebrated as a hero. All Yossarian has to do is publicly praise Colonel Cathcart and say the colonel is a great leader. In exchange for praise and loyalty, Yossarian walks free. He goes home, lives the rest of his life, never flies another mission. It's everything he's been desperate for since the story began. Yossarian almost takes it. He actually reaches for the pen. The pull of survival is magnetic, overwhelming. Go home. Be alive. Just say the words. But something stops his hand midway. If he takes the deal, he saves himself. But he also validates everything Cathcart has done. The raised missions, the pointless deaths, the system that grinds men into nothing. His freedom would cost everyone else's hope. Yossarian doesn't decide yet. He walks out of the office and into Rome at night. What he sees there will help him make his choice. This is the darkest chapter in the entire novel. He sees a soldier beating a thin mangy dog that yelps and cannot escape. He sees a man in a doorway kick a shivering boy into the gutter. No one intervenes. The strong destroy the weak because they can. A woman is assaulted in an alley while people walk past on the main street. No one stops. Military police stand on the corner sharing cigarettes. The city has become a machine for suffering. Rome is a mirror. Everything Yossarian has seen in the military. The powerful using the powerless. Rules protecting the rule makers. Is happening here on every street corner. Catch-22 is everywhere. Yossarian climbs stairs in a Roman building looking for Nately's prostitute's younger sister. He finds Arfi instead. Arfi, the navigator, the pudgy fraternity boy, sitting calmly in a room. A girl is dead. Arfi threw a girl out the window. When Yossarian asks why, Arfi says he couldn't let her tell people what happened. He says it reasonably, like explaining a business decision. He sees nothing wrong. Police burst through the door. Yossarian expects them to arrest Arfi. Instead, they arrest Yossarian. His crime: being absent without leave. Arfi is not even questioned. The system punishes the man without leave. It ignores the man who killed a woman. Because absence without leave is a violation of rules. Murder is merely a violation of morality, and the system only understands rules. This is Catch-22 at its most nightmarish. The law exists to maintain the system, not to deliver justice. Power protects power, always has. Yossarian understands this completely now. They send Yossarian back to Pianosa. Cathcart's deal is still waiting on the desk. The pen still sits beside the paper. Sign it, go home. Leave your friends behind. The temptation hasn't gone away. He's exhausted. Nately is dead. Dunbar is gone, or has vanished. He's alone, hunted by a woman with a knife, trapped by a rule with no exit. Who wouldn't take the deal? Walking across the base at night, Nately's whore appears from behind a building and stabs Yossarian in the side. He goes down, blood on the dust. Soldiers rush him to the hospital on a stretcher. In the hospital again, Yossarian drifts between sleep and waking. The white beds, the barred windows, the same antiseptic smell. He's been here before. The story keeps circling back to this room. The chaplain appears at his bedside. Tapman is breathless, excited, his timid face flushed for once with genuine news. He grabs Yossarian's hand and says, "Or is alive. Or, the little man who crashed 6 times and paddled back grinning every time. Or paddled all the way to Sweden. Neutral Sweden. Freedom. Safety." He made it out. Sweden, a country not at war. No missions, no colonels, no Catch-22. A place where the rule that says you can't leave simply doesn't reach. Or found the one gap in the trap. Yossarian's mind races backward. Every crash, practice. Every time Or paddled back, rehearsal. The tinkering with the stove, the raft. The emergency supplies, preparation. Or was never a fool. He was the smartest man on the island. The crab apples in his cheeks, strengthening his jaw for paddling. The obsessive tinkering, perfecting the raft's mechanical systems. The crashes, practicing ocean survival. Every single thing Or did had a purpose. Or asked Yossarian to fly with him. Yossarian said no. If he'd said yes, he'd be in Sweden right now. But the point isn't the missed chance. The point is this escape is possible. Someone proved it. And now, lying in the hospital with a knife wound in his side, Yossarian finally lets the full memory of Snowdon surface. No more circling. No more flinching away. He's ready to remember everything. Over Avignon. Flak bursts rocking the B-25. Yossarian in the bombardier's position hears screaming from the back of the plane. He crawls through the fuselage toward the sound. Snowdon has been hit. Yossarian sees the leg wound. He tears open the first aid kit, pulls out bandages, works quickly and competently. He wraps the wound tight. Snowdon stops bleeding. Yossarian thinks he's saved him. Then Yossarian unzips Snowdon's flak jacket. And everything changes. Everything in the novel has been building to this single moment. Snowdon's insides spill out into Yossarian's lap. Snowdon's secret. It's the secret of the entire novel, whispered by a dying boy in the back of a shaking bomber. Man is matter. When the spirit is gone, what's left is garbage. That's Snowdon's secret. It's that simple. The liver, the kidneys, the things that keep a person alive. Scattered on the cold metal floor of a bomber at 30,000 feet. Snowdon became garbage the moment the flak tore through him. Snowdon kept whispering the same thing over and over. I'm cold. I'm cold. And Yossarian tried to cover him, tried to keep him warm, knowing it was useless. Knowing the cold was coming from inside. This is the memory Yossarian has been running from the entire story. This is why he doesn't want to fly. not cowardice. He has seen what a human being actually is when the spirit departs. And it's nothing. Drop man out a window and he'll fall. Set fire to him and he'll burn. Bury him and he'll rot. That's Snowdon's secret. The spirit gone, man is garbage. But while the spirit lasts, he is everything. The secret cuts both ways. Yes, bodies are fragile. Yes, death is real and absolute. But that means the spirit, the alive part, the part that loves and thinks and chooses, is the only thing worth protecting. Everything the military does ignores Snowdon's secret. The missions, the medals, the raised numbers. They treat men as matter, as units, as fuel for the machine. They have forgotten what's inside the uniforms. Yossarian makes his decision. He will not take Cathcart's deal. He will not praise the man who sends others to die for his own promotion. Survival is precious, but not at the cost of everything that makes survival worth having. He will not betray the men who are still flying. Not Hungry Joe screaming in his tent. Not the chaplain writing his useless letters. Not the ghost of Nately or the absence of Dunbar. He owes them something the deal cannot purchase. Instead of the deal, Yossarian chooses to desert. To run, like Orr, toward Sweden, toward neutral ground, toward any place where Catch-22 doesn't reach. It's illegal, it's dangerous, it's the only sane option left. The chaplain asks if Yossarian is crazy. Yossarian smiles. A real smile, maybe the first genuine one in the entire novel. He says he's finally sane. For the first time, he's thinking clearly. Yossarian jumps from the hospital window and runs. The cool Mediterranean night air hits his face. His wounded side screams. His boots hit the ground. He doesn't look back, he runs. Nately's whore lunges from behind a building with her knife one final time. Yossarian dodges. He doesn't stop. Even grief can't catch him now. He keeps running toward the coast. The ending is deliberately unfinished. Heller doesn't tell us if Yossarian reaches Sweden. We don't know if he finds a boat, if he survives the journey, if freedom is waiting for him or just more ocean. But the not knowing is the point. The act of running is what matters. Yossarian chose life over compliance, conscience over comfort, movement over surrender. The destination is secondary to the choice. In a world where every door is locked by Catch-22, Yossarian finds the window. Not through logic, not through the system, but by simply refusing to play, the one truly free act in the entire novel. He runs toward the sea, toward the possibility of Sweden, toward Orr's grinning face, and a raft on open water, toward something beyond the reach of colonels and regulations and the logic of traps. The story closes with Yossarian running, alive, defiant, free, or at least freer than anyone who stayed behind and accepted the catch. And that's Catch-22. That's the whole beautiful, maddening story. Let's step back from the story now. Let it breathe for a moment. What did we just experience? A man ran from a war. But that's not really what happened. Is it? Catch-22 is a war novel, yes. It captures the specific insanity of World War II. The bombing campaigns, the bureaucratic madness. The young men sent to die for reasons nobody can explain. But the genius of Heller's novel is that it's really about any system that traps people using their own rationality. The military is just the most extreme example. The catch is everywhere. The title itself became a phrase in our language. When someone says, it's a catch-22, they mean an impossible situation where the rules designed to help you are the same rules that trap you. Notice how Heller uses circular logic in the conversations. Characters talk past each other, loop back to the same points, never resolve anything. The dialogue itself embodies the trap. The novel doesn't follow chronological time. Events from the past interrupt the present. Scenes repeat from different angles. The story moves in circles, spiraling slowly inward towards Snowdon. Heller chose this structure on purpose. Trauma doesn't arrive in neat sequence. You don't remember the worst thing first. You circle it, approach it, flinch away, and finally face it when you're ready. Each time the story returns to Snowdon, we learn something new. First just the name, then the plane, then the wound, then the flak jacket. The full truth reveals itself only when Yossarian can bear it. And then there's the comedy. Catch-22 is one of the funniest novels ever written. Heller uses laughter to smuggle in horror. You're laughing at the absurdity, until suddenly you realize what you're laughing at. Milo Minderbinder is the novel's most devastating satire. He represents capitalism taken to its logical extreme, a system where profit justifies literally anything, including bombing your own people. When Milo bombs his own base for profit and defends it by saying everyone has a share, Heller is showing us something real. The logic of the market can justify the destruction of the very people it claims to serve. Colonel Cathcart represents institutional ambition, a man who treats other people's lives as currency for his own advancement. He doesn't hate his pilots. He simply doesn't see them as people. Shishkov, the parade obsessive, represents military culture at its most absurd. Form matters more than function. The appearance of order matters more than actual results. The march trumps the mission. Meanwhile, Generals Dreidel and Peckham fight each other with memos and counter memos while actual men fly actual missions. The bureaucratic war between generals is more real to them than the shooting war below. Doc Danika's legal death, alive but officially non-existent, is perhaps the cruelest joke in the book. The system doesn't need to kill you. It just needs to stop acknowledging that you're alive. Clivinger's trial by the Action Board. Guilty before the evidence is heard. The verdict decided before the trial begins. Heller wrote this as comedy. Millions of people have lived it as reality. The dead man in Yossarian's tent. Belongings that can't be removed because their owner never officially arrived. Bureaucracy creates ghosts. It makes the present unreal by insisting on a version of reality that exists only in files. Dunbar's disappearance. Men in white simply take him away, and no one asks where he went. The institution can erase a person, not through violence, but through silence. Silence is the system's most powerful weapon. Snowden's death is the moral center of everything. A boy dies in the back of a plane, and his death reveals the fundamental truth. The body is fragile, the spirit is everything, and the system cares about neither. So is Yossarian a coward? The novel argues no. Wanting to live when a system is designed to waste your life isn't cowardice. It's the most radical act of courage available. It's insisting that you matter. Orr's escape is the hidden masterpiece of the novel. The man everyone dismissed as a fool. The one who crashed into the ocean, stuffed fruit in his cheeks, tinkered endlessly, was the genius all along. Nately's death represents the loss of innocence. He was the idealist, the believer, the one who thought love and duty could coexist with war. The novel kills him to show that they cannot. Not in this system. Remember the old Italian man who debated Nately. He said Italy survives by losing. Nately called him a coward. But the old man is alive at the end of the novel. Nately is dead. Who won that argument? Nately's whore, the woman who chases Yossarian with a knife, is grief itself. She follows him because grief follows survivors. You can't reason with it, outrun it, or explain it away. It just keeps coming. Chaplain Tapman's story is a quiet crisis of faith. How do you believe in a loving God inside a system of Catch-22? How do you pray for men when the institution mocks every prayer? Yet the chaplain finds courage. The meekest character in the book makes one of the bravest stands. He tries to help Yossarian through official channels. He refuses to be complicit in silence. Gentleness becomes its own kind of rebellion. Major Major's tragedy is absurdist comedy at its most painful. A man destroyed by a joke, his own name, and then destroyed again by a system that gives him authority but no power to use it. Hungry Joe embodies trauma before the word existed in its modern clinical sense. His screaming isn't madness. It's what happens when the body holds terror the mind can't process. Only danger silences the alarm. The novel has genuine blind spots. Women exist mostly as objects. Nurses to pursue, prostitutes to visit, wives to leave behind. This is a real weakness, and modern readers notice it immediately. Yet Nately's prostitute becomes the most terrifying figure in the entire book. She transcends the role the novel assigns her. She becomes fury, vengeance, and unstoppable grief all in one woman with a knife. The Rome Nightwalk chapter is where the comedy dies completely. Heller drops every joke and shows us what war actually does to the places it touches. Civilians aren't collateral damage, they're the primary damage. When the old woman says, Catch-22, to explain why soldiers threw girls into the street, the phrase completes its transformation. It started as a military paradox. Now it means the raw exercise of power by those who have it. Catch-22 is existential philosophy disguised as a war comedy. It asks the question Camus asked, the question Sartre asked. In an absurd universe, how do you create meaning? Heller's answer is you run. The comedy of repetition works on multiple levels. Things loop in the novel because trauma loops. Things repeat because bureaucracy repeats. The circular structure is the content disguised as form. The brilliance of the final pages is that everything converges. Orr's escape, Snowdon's secret, the chaplain's courage, the deal's temptation. They all collapse into one moment, one choice at a hospital window. Yossarian's refusal is simultaneously hopeless and hopeful. He probably won't make it to Sweden. He'll probably be caught. But the refusal itself has value. The act of saying no changes everything, even if nothing changes. He may not survive, but he won't comply. And that distinction, between surviving by complying and dying while refusing, is the moral core of one of the most important novels of the 20th century. The ending echoes real choices that real people make. Whistleblowers who speak up knowing they'll be punished. Conscientious objectors who refuse to fight. People who say no when saying yes would be so much easier. When the Vietnam War came, American soldiers recognized their own experience in pages written about a different war entirely. Catch-22 predicted Vietnam before Vietnam happened. The catch is always the same. Heller was angry when he wrote this book. Not the hot anger of a young man. The slow, patient anger of someone who watched stupidity and vanity kill people he knew, and spent 8 years turning that anger into art. But the anger is always tempered by love. Heller loved his characters, even the ridiculous ones, even the doomed ones. You can feel it in how carefully he drew each person, each absurd, beautiful detail. The most tender scene in the novel is the most horrifying. Yossarian holding Snowdon in the back of that bomber, trying to keep him warm, whispering reassurances that both of them know are lies. That's love amid horror. Friendship is the only real value in the novel. Yossarian and the chaplain, Yossarian and Dunbar, Yossarian and Orr. In a world where every institution is corrupt, the only trustworthy thing is another person. The novel asks one question above all others: what do you do when the system itself is insane? When the rules are designed to trap you? When the authority is corrupt? When the exit doors are locked from outside? One answer: you run toward something, even if you can't name it yet. Sweden, freedom, sanity, the open sea. You move, because movement is the opposite of the system's demand that you stay in place and accept. Another answer: you simply refuse. Even if refusal costs everything. Even if saying no means losing your career, your safety, your place in the world. The refusal itself has moral weight. Here's the paradox of hope in Catch-22. This is one of the most despairing novels ever written. Every system fails. Every institution betrays. Every rule traps. And yet it ends with an act of pure faith. Yossarian's leap from the hospital window is faith in action. Not faith in God or country or the system. Faith in the proposition that his own life matters enough to risk everything to keep it. The reader is left in the same position as Yossarian. The ending demands that you choose. Not between characters or plot points, but between acceptance and refusal. It asks, what would you do? Do you take the deal? Safety, comfort, home, at the cost of your soul? Or do you jump from the window and run toward something you can't see, can't guarantee, and might not survive? What would you choose? Most people instinctively root for Yossarian's escape. We want him to run. We want him to make it. And that reaction tells us something important about ourselves. We recognize the catch. We've all been trapped by it. We've all encountered a catch-22. Rules that contradict themselves. Systems that punish you for following their own instructions. The experience of being trapped by the very thing that claims to protect you. That's why the book endures. Not because of its historical setting or its literary technique. Because the catch never goes away. Every generation finds its own version waiting for it. Every generation picks up Catch-22 and thinks Heller was writing about their time. The Vietnam generation, the Iraq generation, the corporate generation. They're all right. He was writing about all of them at once. The story of Catch-22 is finished. But now let's talk about the remarkable man who wrote it. A kid from Coney Island who flew 60 missions and spent 8 years turning that experience into a masterpiece. Joseph Heller was born on the 1st of May 1923 in Coney Island, Brooklyn. His parents were Russian Jewish immigrants. His father drove a delivery truck. The family had very little money. His father Isaac died when Joseph was only 5 years old. The boy grew up fast in a rough neighborhood, raised by his mother and older siblings. Coney Island was equal parts magic and hardship. Picture Coney Island in the 1930s. Boardwalks packed with families. Nathan's hot dog steaming on the counter. The ocean roaring beyond the rides. A working, class Jewish community holding together through the Depression. Young Joe was funny. Quick with a joke, sharp with an observation. He started writing short stories as a teenager, sending them to magazines, collecting rejections like merit badges. The ambition was there early. At 19 in 1942, Heller enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps. The war was on and like millions of young Americans, he signed up to fly. He wanted to be a bombardier. Heller flew 60 combat missions as a bombardier in a B-25 Mitchell bomber over Italy and France. 60 missions. The same plane, the same position, the same theater as Yossarian. This novel came from lived experience. Same B-25 Mitchell, same Mediterranean theater, same bombardier's seat behind plexiglass, same flak bursting outside. When you read Catch-22, you're reading a man's actual nightmares transformed into comedy. Heller's first missions felt like adventure. He was young, the Mediterranean was beautiful, and the danger seemed abstract. Then his friends started dying. Then the flak got closer. Then the adventure ended permanently. One particular mission over Avignon changed Heller permanently. His plane took a direct flak hit. The gunner behind him was badly wounded. Heller crawled through the fuselage to help, just as Yossarian would later do in fiction. He reached the wounded gunner and tried to help. What he saw in the back of that plane, the fragility of a human body torn by shrapnel, stayed with him for the rest of his life. The Snowden scene is Heller's truest autobiography. After the war ended, Heller went to college on the GI Bill. First New York University, then Columbia. A kid from Coney Island suddenly swimming in the deep waters of serious literature and philosophy. He studied English literature, devoured everything. Then he won a Fulbright scholarship to Oxford University in England. A working-class Brooklyn kid walking through the ancient halls of one of the world's great institutions. Back in America, Heller took a job in advertising. Through the 1950s, he wrote copy for magazines. Look McCall's, the slick consumer publications of post-war prosperity. By day, he sold the American dream. By night, he wrote a novel that questioned everything. Heller started writing the novel in 1953. The first chapter arrived almost fully formed, as if it had been composing itself in his subconscious for years. The voice was there from the first paragraph, funny, angry, and alive. The novel opens with one of the most famous first lines in American literature. The words set the tone for everything that follows. Absurd, tender, and slightly unhinged. That sentence came to Heller like a gift. The writing took 8 years. 8 years of nights and weekends, stealing time from his advertising job, from his family, from sleep. He wrote the novel the way Orr built his escape, slowly, secretly, obsessively. He rewrote obsessively. Some chapters went through dozens of revisions. The comedy had to be precise. One wrong word and the joke collapses. The horror shows through too early, the balance tips. The novel was originally titled Catch-22, but another novelist, Leon Uris, published a book called Mila 18 around the same time. Heller's editor worried about confusion. They tried other numbers, 11, 14, then 22. Catch-22 sounded right. His editor Robert Gottlieb at Simon & Schuster believed in the book, when almost no one else did. Gottlieb championed it through a publishing house full of doubters, who thought the novel was too strange, too long, too everything. Catch-22 was published in October 1961. The initial reviews were split down the middle. Some critics recognized a masterpiece immediately. Others dismissed it as chaotic, repetitive, and undisciplined. One prominent review called the novel structurally weak and excessively repetitive. The reviewer missed the point entirely. The repetition was the structure. The chaos was the design. Not every critic hears the music on first listen. But the readers understood. Word of mouth spread through college campuses, military bases, and dinner tables like fire through dry grass. People pressed the novel into friends' hands and said, "You have to read this." By the mid-1960s, Catch-22 was the book. The paperback sold millions. It became the novel that defined a generation's distrust of authority, institutions, and official explanations for unnecessary suffering. When Vietnam escalated, American soldiers carried Catch-22 in their packs alongside their ammunition. They recognized their own war in a novel written about a different one. The Catch had followed them across decades. A novel about the insanity of one war perfectly predicted the insanity of the next. The colonels had different names. The missions had different targets. But the Catch, the beautiful, terrible logic of the Catch, was identical. Heller said something important about why it took him so long to write the book. He couldn't have written it during the war, or immediately after. He needed the distance of years. Trauma needs time to become art. The humor was his defense mechanism. Heller understood that if you can't laugh at horror, the horror will destroy you. Comedy wasn't an evasion of truth. It was the only container strong enough to hold it. Heller's second novel came in 1974, Something Happened, a completely different book. No war, no bombers, no Mediterranean. Instead, a quiet American executive in a suburban house, terrified of everything and paralyzed by corporate dread. Something Happened was well received, though nothing could match the lightning strike impact of Catch-22. It proved Heller wasn't a one-subject writer. But it also proved that some first novels cast a shadow nothing can escape. He wrote other novels too. Good as Gold satirized Washington politics, and in 1994, he published Closing Time, a sequel to Catch-22 that brought Yossarian back as an old man in a changed America. Closing Time imagined Yossarian as an old man, still alive, still fighting the system, but in peacetime America. The Catch had evolved, no longer military, now corporate, political, bureaucratic. But still the same fundamental trap. In 1981, Heller was struck by Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare disease that caused total paralysis. His body shut down completely. He couldn't move, couldn't feed himself, couldn't turn a page. The bombardier was grounded in the most absolute way. His close friend Speed Vogel moved in to help during the long recovery. Together they wrote a memoir about the experience. Even facing total paralysis, Heller reached for humor. Comedy was still the only container strong enough. Even facing paralysis, Heller used comedy as survival. The exact same tool Yossarian used. The novelist and his greatest character shared more than a war. They shared a philosophy. When everything falls apart, laugh. Keep laughing. In interviews, Heller was wry and combative. He didn't suffer fools or polite questions. He said what he thought with the directness of a man who had seen the worst and no longer worried about being liked. When interviewers pointed out that he'd never written another book as acclaimed as Catch-22, Heller had a famous response. He said that was true, but then again, neither had anyone else. The room usually went quiet after that. Let's talk about what was actually happening in Italy in 1944 while Heller flew his missions. The Allied forces were pushing north through the Italian peninsula, in some of the bloodiest fighting of the European theater. Allied forces had landed in Sicily in 1943 and fought their way up the boot of Italy. Monte Cassino, the Gustav Line, the battles for Rome, each advance measured in yards and lives. The campaign was brutal, slow, and costly. The strategic bombing campaign that Heller participated in was genuinely devastating and genuinely deadly. B-25 missions over bridges, rail yards, and supply lines were met by walls of anti-aircraft fire. The flack in the novel is not exaggerated. The military bureaucracy Heller satirized was absolutely real. Mission counts were raised. Medals were political. Officers competed for promotion, while enlisted men flew and died. The novel is barely fiction in its institutional details. After the war, American veterans returned to unprecedented prosperity. New homes, new cars, the GI Bill, the baby boom. But many carried invisible wounds that a prosperous country didn't want to acknowledge or discuss. The 1950s corporate culture Heller worked in valued conformity above everything. Wear the suit. Buy the house. Don't question the system. The America that won the war became a country that demanded obedience to a different kind of order. Catch-22 was written directly against that culture. It said the war wasn't glorious. It said the heroes were often cowards, and the cowards were often sane. It said the system was not your friend. In 1961, this was revolutionary. The book arrived just as the 60s counterculture was emerging. Perfect timing. Not planned, just lucky. A generation ready to question authority found a novel that questioned everything. The match was instant. The anti-war movement embraced Catch-22 as its unofficial scripture. Protesters quoted it. Draft resistors carried it. The novel became a protest tool as much as a work of literature, sharper than any slogan. Heller was uncomfortable being turned into a political symbol. He saw himself as a novelist, not an activist. He'd written a story about people, not a manifesto. But books, once released, belonged to their readers. He insisted the book wasn't really anti-war. It was about the individual versus the institution. Any institution, military, corporate, governmental, religious. The target was larger than any single conflict. The distinction matters. Catch-22 isn't saying war shouldn't exist. It's saying that systems, any systems, will devour the individuals inside them unless those individuals refuse to be devoured. That's a much bigger statement. Joseph Heller died on December 12, 1999, at the age of 76. A heart attack took him just weeks before the new millennium. The bombardier from Coney Island had flown his last mission. He left behind one of the most important American novels of the 20th century. A book that changed how we think about war, institutions, and the courage it takes to simply refuse. Not a bad legacy for a kid from Brooklyn. Here's something extraordinary. The phrase Catch-22 entered the English language. It's in every dictionary now. People use it every day without knowing they're quoting a novel published in 1961. It means a paradoxical situation from which there's no escape because of contradictory rules. People say it about insurance claims, job applications, legal disputes. The phrase does its work without needing the novel behind it. How many novels have added a phrase to everyday language? In the 20th century, you can count them on one hand. Orwell gave us, Huxley gave us Brave New World. Heller gave us Catch-22. That's rare company. In 1970, director Mike Nichols turned Catch-22 into a film, fresh off the success of The Graduate. Nichols assembled one of the most impressive casts ever gathered for a single movie. The ambition was enormous. Alan Arkin played Yossarian. He captured the manic desperation perfectly. Those dark eyes darting with intelligence and fear. The sardonic grin masking genuine terror. It remains one of the great performances of the era. The film struggled with the novel's structure. How do you film circular time? How do you show a man's thoughts looping back to trauma? The non-linear comedy that works on the page resists the linear demands of cinema. Orson Welles played General Dreedle, a piece of casting so perfect it barely needed direction. Welles brought his own enormous authority to the role of a man who demands absolute obedience and absolute admiration simultaneously. The film competed with another military satire released the same year, Robert Altman's MASH. Both were dark comedies about the absurdity of war. MASH won the cultural moment. Catch-22 the film was overshadowed. MASH became the television show that ran for 11 years. Catch-22 the film faded into appreciation by dedicated fans. But the novel itself never faded. Books outlast their adaptations because they live in the reader's imagination. Hulu produced a 6-episode miniseries of Catch-22. George Clooney directed several episodes and played Shishkov. Christopher Abbott brought a new Yossarian to life for a generation that had never read the book. The miniseries had something the 1970 film didn't: time. 6 episodes allowed the circular structure to breathe. Viewers could experience the novel's spiraling approach to Snowden's death the way readers always had. Modern audiences discovered the story through this adaptation, many for the first time. Libraries reported spikes in the novel's borrowing. Bookstores restocked. 60 years after publication, The Catch was catching new readers. Catch-22's influence on literature is immense. It opened the door for postmodern war fiction. Novels that refuse linear time, that mix comedy with horror, that question whether traditional heroism even exists. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, published 8 years after Catch-22, follows a remarkably similar path. Comedy masking trauma. Fractured time reflecting a broken mind. A war novel that's really about the impossibility of writing war novels. Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried pushed further. A Vietnam memoir that admits to being fiction, that lies to tell the truth. O'Brien learned from Heller that the facts of war matter less than the feel of war. Every dark military comedy since 1961 owes something to Heller. From MASH to Jarhead, from Dr. Strangelove to Generation Kill, the template he created, laugh at the insanity or it will kill you, became the dominant mode. Beyond war fiction, Catch-22 influenced comedy itself. The absurdist style, circular logic played straight, bureaucratic madness treated as normal, spread into every corner of modern humor. Monty Python's bureaucratic comedy. Officials demanding forms that don't exist, rules that contradict themselves. Authority figures who are clearly insane. Has roots in the same soil Heller tilled first. Catch-22 taught writers something fundamental. Horror and comedy are not opposites. They're partners. The same moment can be the funniest thing you've ever read, and the most devastating. That insight changed fiction permanently. In modern corporate culture, people invoke Catch-22 every single day. Insurance companies that require documentation you can't get without insurance. Customer service lines that loop back to the beginning. The Catch has gone corporate. The novel resonates because bureaucracy has only grown since 1961. Heller wrote about a military system that dehumanized individuals. Since then, every institution has learned the same trick. The Catch has scaled up. Consider the modern job seeker. You need experience to get a job. But you need a job to get experience. That's a Catch-22 as elegant as anything Conal Cathcart ever devised. Heller would have recognized it instantly. Healthcare Catch-22s might be the cruelest modern version. You need treatment but can't afford it without coverage. You need coverage but can't qualify because of the condition you need treated. Heller wrote this logic 60 years before it became daily news. Immigration Catch-22s. You need a visa to enter the country. You need to be in the country to apply for the visa. You need documents from your home country. Your home country no longer exists. The trap has no nationality. The novel's treatment of trauma was decades ahead of psychology. Before the term PTSD existed in clinical vocabulary, Heller depicted it with perfect accuracy. The circling memory, the avoidance, the sudden return. He knew all of it from inside. Snowden's death. The way Yossarian circles it, approaches it, retreats, approaches again, and finally faces it. is exactly how trauma specialists describe the process of integration. The mind protects itself until it's ready. Modern trauma psychology validates Heller's narrative technique completely. He didn't know the clinical terms. He just knew how it felt. From the inside of a B-25 over Avignon, from the inside of a memory that wouldn't let go. The novel's deepest theme is individual conscience versus institutional authority. When the system tells you to do something you know is wrong, do you obey? How much do you risk by saying no? How much do you lose by saying yes? Yossarian is the original refuser. The prototype for every person who has looked at a corrupt system and said, "I will not participate." Whistleblowers, conscientious objectors, truth tellers. They all have a little Yossarian in them. Is Yossarian selfish or heroic? The novel deliberately refuses to answer. He wants to save his own life. He also refuses to betray his friends. These two impulses coexist. You, the reader, must weigh them. Literary scholars have debated the ending for decades. Is escape truly possible within the logic of Catch-22? Or is Yossarian's run toward Sweden just another form of the catch? Hope is the final trap. Some readers say Or's Sweden is a fairy tale. Within the novel's logic, where every system is rigged and every exit leads back to the entrance, how can a rubber raft in a gap, Tooth's smile, actually reach freedom? Others argue that escape's possibility doesn't matter. The point is the running. The point is the refusal. Yossarian's leap from the window is meaningful whether he reaches Sweden or drowns in the attempt. The choice is the heroism, not the outcome. Catch-22 appears on virtually every list of the greatest novels of the 20th century. Modern Library, Time Magazine, the Literary Guild. It sits comfortably among the masterworks because it earned its place through sheer lasting power. Universities worldwide teach Catch-22 in courses on postmodernism, war literature, American fiction, and dark comedy. The novel is studied from so many angles because it operates on so many levels simultaneously. Heller's legacy is this one book can change how an entire culture thinks. Before Catch-22, there was no word for the specific trap of contradictory rules. After it, everyone had the language. That's power. Before Heller, war novels were usually heroic or tragic. Brave men doing brave things, or doomed men meeting doom nobly. Heller added a third option: absurd. War as institutional madness. Courage as simple refusal. Heroism as running away. The absurd isn't just funny. It's a way of seeing clearly when nothing makes sense. When the rules are insane, the sanest response is to acknowledge the insanity and refuse to pretend it's rational. That's what Catch-22 teaches. Heller gave us language to describe the indescribable. Before him, people felt trapped by contradictory systems and couldn't name the feeling. After him, they could say two words and everyone understood. That's a gift that keeps giving. The book endures because the catch endures. Wherever systems exist, wherever rules are made by people who benefit from those rules, the trap is there. And as long as it's there, people will need Catch-22 to help them see it clearly. We've been together for almost an hour now. The whole story has been told. The madness, the laughter, the grief, and the running. Let's slow down together. There's nowhere else to be. Remember where we started. A man in a hospital bed on a tiny island, trying not to fly. That was Yossarian's whole problem. The world wanted him to die for something he didn't believe in. He said no. Think about Yossarian for a moment. Not the bombardier, not the rebel, just the man. A person who wanted to live long enough to figure out what living was for. Is that really so unreasonable? Have you ever been caught in a Catch-22 of your own? Most of us have. Those impossible moments where every option feels blocked. Where the rules seem designed to keep you exactly where you are. Those moments when the system says one thing and means another. When the exit sign points to another entrance. When the help desk tells you to call a different number that sends you back to the same recording. Heller's answer to those moments was simple. Sometimes you just have to move in a new direction. Not because you know where you're going, but because standing still has become worse than any uncertainty. Not running from something so much as running toward something you can't see yet. Or paddled toward Sweden without a map. The direction was enough. North, forward. That was his entire plan. Or's lesson is patience. Prepare quietly. Practice without explaining yourself. Let people think you're foolish if it keeps them from watching too closely. Then go when you're ready and don't look back. The chaplain's lesson is gentler. Even the meekest voice matters. Even the quietest person can choose courage when the moment demands it. You don't have to be loud to be brave. You just have to show up. Snowden's lesson is the hardest. Life is fragile, bodies break. The spirit, the part that laughs and loves and chooses, is the only thing worth protecting. Everything else is just matter waiting to fall apart. And remember the humor. Even in the worst circumstances, even when the catch has closed around you completely, laughter is still available. Heller proved that, Yossarian proved that. Laughter is a form of survival. Heller laughed at the military, at colonels, at death, at bureaucracy, at the whole absurd machinery of organized human stupidity. Not because any of it was genuinely funny, but because the laughter was his refusal to surrender. Laughing is how you refuse to be defeated. Not by pretending things are fine, but by acknowledging they're terrible and choosing joy anyway. That's what Catch-22 does on every page. That's what you can do too. The night is getting deeper now. Let your thoughts soften a little. The island of Pianosa is far away, the missions are done, and the story has found its ending. You can let it go whenever you're ready. If you're still awake, that's perfectly fine. If your eyes are getting heavy, that's fine too. There's no right way to listen to a story. There's no test at the end. Just the story and you and the night. Pianosa is quiet tonight. The airfield is dark. The bombers sit in their rows with engines cold and propellers still. No missions tomorrow. No missions ever again. The war, for tonight at least, is over. The Mediterranean catches the moonlight and holds it. Silver on black water, endlessly calm, endlessly patient. The same sea that Yossarian ran toward, the same water or paddled across. Tonight it's just beautiful, nothing more. Somewhere out on that dark water, if you believe the story, a small rubber raft is still paddling steadily north. Or is still grinning, still tinkering, still heading toward something better. Or is grinning in the dark. He always knew what he was doing. Crab apples and valve parts and 6 beautiful practice crashes, all leading to this moment on the open water, with the stars showing the way north. The air is warm tonight. Mediterranean warm, the kind that carries the smell of olive trees and salt water and cooling engine metal. The kind of air that makes you breathe a little deeper, without thinking about it. No colonels tonight. No mission boards, no Catch-22, no rules that bend back on themselves. No numbers climbing on chalkboards. Just this moment, just this quiet, just the sound of the sea and nothing else. Yossarian is running somewhere out there in the dark. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the running itself is the happy ending. Not arriving, just moving. Just choosing, just being alive and in motion. Maybe escape isn't a destination at all. Maybe it's a decision. The decision to move when everything says stay. The decision to refuse when everything says comply. A decision you can make from anywhere, even from a bed, even tonight. Let that settle over you like a blanket. The courage to refuse, the patience to prepare, the humor to survive, the love to hold on to the people who matter. Heller put all of that into one novel. Can you feel it? Your breathing is slower now. That's good. That's your body doing what bodies do when they feel safe. The story made a space for you, and you settled into it. That's exactly what was supposed to happen. The story is done. Filed away somewhere safe in your mind, next to all the other stories that matter to you. Yossarian or the chaplain. Snowden. They'll be there when you need them. Tomorrow you might think of Yossarian when something doesn't make sense. When a rule contradicts itself. When a system asks you to do something absurd. You'll know what it is. You'll have the word for it. You might smile and think, ah, Catch-22. And in that small moment of recognition, Heller's gift will be working. A name for the nameless. A laugh in the dark. A phrase that says, I see it too. And you'll know exactly what it means. Because now you know the story. You know Yossarian, and Orr, and the chaplain, and poor Snowdon whispering in the dark. You know the catch. And knowing is the first step past it. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. It's been really nice. An hour with Yossarian is an hour well spent, even if you slept through half of it. Especially if you slept through half of it. If you ever want to read the book yourself, it's wonderful. Funny in ways you won't expect, devastating in ways you can't prepare for. It's one of those novels that changes the shape of your thinking permanently. But for now, there's nothing left to do. The story is complete. The author has been honored. The legacy has been traced. All that remains is the night, and the sea, and the quiet, and you. The Mediterranean is calm tonight. The moon is full. Pianoso is sleeping. Somewhere in the darkness, or is still paddling, still grinning, still heading north. The story goes on even after the telling stops. Good night and sweet dreams. Even Yossarian, sardonic, stubborn, beautifully alive Yossarian, would wish you that. Sleep well. You've earned it. The catch can wait until morning. See you next time. We've got more stories to tell. More books, more lives, more reasons to stay up just a little too late. But not tonight. Tonight, rest. Good night.